All right, I pray that this camera stays in place. Once again, driving, don't know where the frick I'm going, but probably gonna go to the gas station, a little low on gas here, man. One of the things that I've been thinking, man, and I think the answer to this question, or the many answers to this question, is rather obvious, but like, why do we scroll, bro? Like, why do we spend all day scrolling? If not even all day, why do we scroll to such a great degree on whether that be Instagram or Snapchat or Twitter, whatever it is, man? Like, why do we scroll so much? And there are hella answers to this, you know what I'm saying? And it also depends on the individual, but I think a lot of the answers to this question we all have in common, or many of us have in common, I should say. For one, I think scrolling is a coping mechanism, you know? For a lot of us, when we have something bothering us in life, or there's something we want to avoid, whether that be a conversation, an interaction, or maybe just a personal thing, social media is really cheap dopamine, bro. It's a way of getting that hit of happiness that only lasts so long. And what these companies do, they continuously make more and more cheap dopamine because they know that you're going to keep coming to it for whatever reason. Also, I hope this camera isn't too shaky because this road is a little bumpy. But yeah, it's cheap dopamine that they're making, and it's cheap dopamine that they know that you and I are going to continuously keep coming back to, and we're going to keep coming to in times when we'll be down bad, man. I've had so many instances in my life, bro, especially this past year, 2023, where things weren't going too well for me, and instead of confronting my problems, nah, I'm gonna go on Instagram and scroll, you know what I'm saying? Endless dopamine, endless cheap dopamine. And what this does, man, it's just a distraction, bro. Like, if your genuine intention is to get rid of your problem or to change something, scrolling is not gonna help, bro. It's just gonna bring temporary good feelings, temporary ease, but it's not an ease that's gonna fix your problems. So yeah, I think the coping theory is definitely a big one. Another reason, man, I think from a biological level, again, I refer to dopamine, I think it's almost natural that we scroll in a way, and let me explain what I mean by that. Our brain craves pleasure and wants pleasure, like it wants to feel good, and that's a reasonable thing. It's only a fact of like biological life that you want to feel good, you know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with that inherently. And when you look at the self, the human self, we're like broken up into parts, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's your rational self, the part of you that makes conscious or rational decisions, but then there's also this part of you that simply exists in a state of desire, that just wants to get this thing or that thing because it feels good. And that's exactly what scrolling is, man. It's a way to feel good. When you're not feeling good, or maybe you are feeling good and you want to feel even better, you know you got those reels over there, you know you got that content over there that's gonna make you feel good. And it's manipulation at its finest, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not to say that there is no blame upon us for scrolling, but the people who design these apps, they know how we are biologically wired, and they create their platforms in a way that's gonna manipulate our biology, man. If nobody's seen it, I'd highly recommend watching, what's that one Netflix documentary called? The one about how social media companies are manipulating us. You can look it up. You can look it up, the terrible description I just gave. But I remember watching that documentary, and it really just opened my eyes up to how much control these companies have over us. But that's like a whole separate video, man. Another reason why I think we scroll, and this is a big reason that I've heard from people, is to stay up to date. You know, it's natural to want to know how your friends, your families, and peers are doing. But what ends up happening is that, let's say, I'll use me for example. I'll go on social media, I'll be like, hey, I wonder how so-and-so is doing, or I wonder how these people are doing. And it begins as that, you know, and it's pure intention. But you just give it a couple minutes later, and I'm out here watching like freaking wrestling videos or like something nonsense, and what I had originally went on social media for is completely out the window. And again, I think that speaks more on the part of who we naturally are as people, or who we are biologically, man. Like, there's that reasonable side of you, but again, there's also that desirous part of you that can often take over. And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like of all the reasons why we scroll, this is probably one of the worst ones. Like, there are so many other ways to know how your friends and your family are doing that are not gonna get you down a cycle of scrolling, you know what I mean? If you happen to get into a cycle of scrolling. Like before we had social media, man, and I'm not one to talk about this. I'm not the greatest with calling. It's definitely something I want to improve on. Before social media, people were calling, people were texting, people were having in-person interaction, bro. So of all of the theories, I think that this is probably the worst one, not gonna lie. And it's not the one that I favor for sure. Another reason why I think we scroll, man, is because other people are scrolling. We live in a society where social media is a norm, you know what I'm saying? And if you don't have an Instagram or a Snapchat or Twitter or whatever, you're almost seen as weird, you know what I'm saying? Like an outcast of some kind. And side point, but shout out to the people who don't have social media, man. In my experience, these are some of the happiest, the best people who are not on social media, man. It's like their mind is just clear, man. So shout out to y'all. But yeah, I think a lot of us do it because other people do it, because this person has an Instagram, I want to have an Instagram, and because we live in a scrolling society where that's the norm, hey, let me do it too. And it's really interesting, again, man, I keep bringing this up, but all of this goes back to who we are as individuals, you know what I'm saying? If we see people doing something, we also kind of want to do it too, you know? It's almost human nature, man. All right, and then I got more reasons, but this is the last one I'm gonna mention in this video. And this is very connected to the prior reasons. I think another reason we scroll is because we're bored or we have nothing to do. I mean, think about a time when you felt like you had nothing to do and you have Wi-Fi. One of the first things you're gonna do is go on social media, scroll, man. Stop lying, bro. I know you doing it. And it's interesting because a lot of us who scroll for this reason, when you really sit down and think about it, bro, we know we got a lot of things to do, man. You know you got that homework assignment that was due like 5 minutes ago. You know you got that person you gotta call. You know you gotta clean your room, man. You do have something to do. You just don't want to do it. And I'm speaking to myself first before I say this to anyone else. So yeah, man, if you're a scroller like I've been, take a little bit of time to consider why you're scrolling and think about what your life would be like if you didn't scroll, man. All right, let me turn this camera off before I crash, man.